الحمد لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وبعد. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Our dear viewers, Deen Love, we're back again. We're back like a heart attack. I'm with yours only, truly, Ali Deen. Ali Deen, what's going on, man?
Alhamdulillah, man. Everything is good. It's been a while, right? It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Some ups and downs of life. You know, life get busy
Life.
sometimes.
That's all.
But we never can, stray away from giving the people what they want.
MashaAllah.
In its truest form, inshallah. So
Yes. So today we have for you a special episode. We have a very famous Christian apologist by the name of Cliff. And Cliff here, he's known for speaking to university students and addressing questions about Christianity and atheism and things like that. And he delves into a lot of philosophy as well. So Cliff, he's a very well-known apologetic apologist, and also he has somebody else with him as well. Stuart Knetchtle. And so this podcast here, they're going to talk about some of the most controversial subjects and topics that pertain to the Old Testament, and in terms of God's mercy in the Old Testament, contrast with the New Testament. And so let's just delve right into it.
Do you think that this grace, this omnipotence, this love and charity of the Old Testament God is expressed in the instances where he commands the complete obliteration of entire nations of people, including the women and the children and even the animals, at multiple points throughout the history of the Israelites trying to conquer their holy land, which is promised to them by God, such that if anybody is already living there, they're driven out, and if they refuse to leave, they're chased out and they're killed, and then they come back and they kill the women and the children. Do you think that this is the same graceful, loving God that's issuing these commands?
Okay.
No.
So, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Salatu Salam ala Rasulillah, amma ba'd. So, for context, we want you to understand what the video is about, as Brother Uthman has mentioned, and the host was talking about. So, in the Bible, 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 3, it says, for example, now go and strike the Amalekites or Amaleks and completely destroy everything that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey.
Subhanallah.
Now, if you have conversations with Christians often, they talk about, just like he mentioned, that God is very loving, very merciful, that he loves everyone, whether good or bad, sinful, that they do the right thing, and that he died for their sins, quote unquote. And they cease to mention this part. Either one or two reasons. One, either they don't know it, and that's many Christians, when you come across and have a conversation with them, they don't know it. Or their excuses to say, oh, well, this is from the Old Testament.
Yeah.
But then the follow-up question always that they have a problem with answering is the God of the Old Testament a different God than the God of the New Testament? And the answer is no.
That's a great question.
You know what I mean? So they struggle with that. And so a lot of times they'll throw you, well, he loves them, and they try to find excuses. And these two individuals will do the same thing in this video. They try to find excuses from their own opinions, and we'll bring this back up later. And they can't really grasp with the idea that the God that is loving and merciful will ask or say and command to kill women, children, sheep, ox, animals.
Yeah, animals.
What did they do, right?
Yeah.
What did they do? So we want to go to let's go to 2:15.
But by the way, is that the question? Does that verse also have leave and keep the girls for yourself?
I don't think so, but I think it touches on
Okay.
that.
Let me just add one more ta'liq onto this one. And I would also add that many Christians probably don't know the implications of, not knowing about the Old Testament, because oftentimes we hear things like, well, Jesus came to fulfill the law, and so the Old Testament is over with, and we're focused on New Testament, right? But if you believe that Jesus is God, or he shares the same essence with God, there's one or two ways that you have to look at this. One is that Jesus himself is the one who ordered this. The loving God, who you claim that, he loves everyone and Jesus loves you. He ordered all of these, killing the baby, mass murder, everything. Or if you say that Jesus is the Son of God and the Father is the one who ordered it, then Jesus had to be okay with it. Right. So he also co-signed off on it.
Yeah.
So either way you look at it, you're in trouble.
Right.
Because you want to preach to us the good gospel that you say you're going to preach to us, but at the same time, the one who gave you this good gospel, you claim allegedly had ordered these sort of massacre. Okay.
2:15.
You don't want to start off with the...
Yeah, he's going to talk for a while. Do you want that?
Okay. No, I liked his first answer. I just want his first...
touch on that, yeah.
No. Instead, I think we've got to read very carefully. First point, do I allow God to judge? In my culture, that's unacceptable. And yet the Bible insists God does have the right to judge. Second point, is exaggeration being used? Is hyperbole being used in a lot of those passages? Yes, it is. Because clearly, obviously, many of those people who were supposedly all wiped out appear in the next book. So you know that they weren't...
Does this sound like something you could probably make a connection to in today's time?
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah. Like probably Gaza.
Yeah. Last 75 years, huh?
So they say like, well, you're talking about all these Palestinians are being killed, but we didn't kill all of them. Obviously there's some still there. So it can't be that bad. So this is crazy. When you want to go off and use hyperbole, one thing though I do want to applaud, and this is one of the main points we're going to address, is listen to his first answer. He said no. He said that he's not happy with those verses, and the culture that we're in, the Western culture or the Western context that he comes from, will not allow God to judge. This is a really, really good point, because over this conversation, over this interview, you're going to hear a lot of things that you could probably accuse Cliff here of blasphemy. Right. And this is not just only for him, but an extension to a lot of the American Christian today. The Christians in the West, they have this like lovey-dovey view of Jesus, but when it comes to problematic, quote unquote, problematic texts like this one, then they kind of try to brush it off and say, well, I'm not happy about that. I don't believe in God, in that God. I believe in Jesus, the God of the New Testament. It's like, it's the same God.
It's like a buffet. They get to pick and choose what they want and then leave off what they don't want.
So this is important for us to pay attention.
That we are more interconnected than we as American individualists would like to admit. And when God judges a people group, yes, some innocent people are swept along in the judgment. And that bugs me. I don't like that. And yet that is part of, I think, what the Bible is talking about when it says we're created in the image of God, meaning that we do have free will, which means there are consequences to my decisions that affect my children, that affect my grandchildren.
That's the part. Okay, so he's very clever in trying to answer the question. What he's trying to say here is that this is a human's decision, not so much God's decision. That the consequences of our actions lead to children dying, women being killed, X, Y, and Z. And he's trying to separate the two. That's very problematic. Because if you're saying, oh, well, I have free will and I'm doing this, that's one thing. but you're also saying, oh, this is a hyperbole, this is an exaggeration.
Right.
If God ordained this and said, if you want, you have to obey me and you need to do what I command, he's telling you again to kill the women, the children, X, Y, and Z. So to separate the two and have an answer for one and not the other, it's a clever way of trying to say, I'm trying to distract you from the point where you're trying to say, God said to do this. But he's saying, no, it's humans' mistake.
It's humans.
And you'll either benefit from it or you will face the consequence and be punished for it.
Right.
So then he makes that point by saying, well, I went to school and some people had to build the school and whatnot. And I benefit from it, but someone had to face the consequences and be punished for it, or some sacrifices had to happen in the process. That is a very distinct way of saying, well, it's our fault and we have problems and people get caught in a crossfire and then get caught up, and then we have to say, well, that's part of the game. Yeah. If you get hit while me and somebody else is fighting, well, you got caught in the mix of it. That's, that just happens for a reason.
Which is, like you said, it's a very meticulous way of trying to slither out of this one.
Yeah.
But this is not just collateral damage.
Right.
Because the verse clearly says, go and kill even the children.
Yeah.
The babies. So this is not like, hey, I'm trying to get this guy, and then one of the aunts and the mom, the shrapnel hit them and all this, and the ricochet. No, this is literally targeting children,
right?
Babies, women, right? Donkeys, animals. So this is targeted. This is not like, so now the question is, so what did those people do? What did the women do? What did the babies do?
So again, here's the thing. If the verse said, fight someone or your enemy you're fighting, and if someone gets caught up in the mix, it's okay for them to die.
That's
I think it would make sense for him to defend it in that manner, but the way he's defending it does not coincide with the verse itself. And that's a problem. That's a clear contradiction in itself. If the verse clearly said, hey, go and fight your enemy. If a woman's in the way, quote unquote, if you're bombing a building and so-and-so person you're trying to kill is in there and other people die, that's okay. I would understand if he was trying to defend that. But it clearly states, go and tell me where you could go and kill children and that's okay. I don't understand where a child has to die and then you have to justify by saying, well, you got caught in the crossfire.
Yeah.
Over many years, given sacrificially to build that. So there are real consequences that stretch down through the generations of our decisions. And also, the Bible never says that those children and all those people go to eternity separate from God. I'm convinced that we will see those children in heaven if they were killed before an age of accountability. So the justice of God will ultimately triumph.
Yeah.
But do I have problems with the text? Yes, of course I have problems with the text. I don't understand it exactly. I don't understand what God is doing exactly there, why he says that kind of thing. But I'm also convinced that hyperbole is being used.
Okay, so first and foremost,
we're back to the hyperbole.
Yeah, hyperbole, right? And we'll be addressing this more as we go on. But first things first, when it comes to Islam, we don't give our own interpretations of the Quran or Hadith, or try to, in my opinion, I think this is and I don't know about this, or even to say I don't agree with it.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes we have to understand that the human, we cannot conceptualize every information. And if you don't understand because you didn't study or anything, that is not because it is wrong. It's because you did not comprehend it and try to understand the best way you should. Yeah. And that is the way that you should approach anything in life, especially when you defending your religion through and through every single day. You shouldn't be like, well, I don't know and I don't agree with it. This, again, is the idea of going to a buffet and picking and choosing what you like and then leaving off the rest. Yeah. So then the other point he mentions, he says, it's okay for them to die, the children and the women and all these animals, but then we'll be reunited, or God will be reunited with them in the afterlife. Yeah. So he's ordaining to kill them. He's saying, go ahead and kill them, but then we'll be together when this is all over. I think that's a contradiction right there.
Yeah, I think even this is the problem with Christian academics is there's two groups. There's a group that is more they're more acquainted with the verses, the Bible. They know the Bible pretty well. And then there's Christians that when they debate purely on philosophy.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys.
Yeah.
So if you see, they brought him the text because he doesn't deal with stuff like this. He
Right.
usually deals with, does God exist?
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Does
you
he
know?
love you? Yeah.
Right,
Does he
right,
care
right,
about
right.
you?
And so those are things, and he'll give all these, and that's why he's using hyperboles
Yeah.
and all these different type of, um, what are these?
saying he's exaggerating all
Yeah,
this
yeah,
other
yeah.
stuff.
And all of these, linguistic tools that he's using to make his point. But if you notice, he's not given any evidence,
Right.
nothing. He's just like, I'm convinced
Yeah.
that this is what's going to happen.
Right.
I believe that this is what's going to happen.
He's good at
Right.
that. Yeah, he's really good at that.
So that's why you got. And then I applaud the one who's questioning him, because the interviewer actually pins him down multiple times. on this,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
I don't want to get this wrong. Perhaps we should look at the text. Yeah. So in Joshua chapter 8, when Israel had finished killing all of the men of Ai in the fields and in the wilderness where they had chased them, and when every one of them had been put to the sword, all of the Israelites returned to Ai and killed those who were in it. 12,000 people fell that day. 12,000 men and women fell that day, all the people of Ai. So we know that women are being killed, non-combatants are being killed. We know that there are thousands of them. We also know that there were people who had left. They'd run into the wilderness. They were out of the promised land, but the Israelites chased after them and then killed them in the wilderness. And it says all of them were put to the sword. Maybe that's an exaggeration. Maybe that some of them ran away. Maybe all of the ones that they captured were put to the sword, but some of them managed to actually run away, and those are the people who show up in the next chapter. But it's only because, for want of trying, that they managed to survive. But maybe it is just hyperbole. But we know that 12,000 people were killed. We know that the Israelites then turned around after killing the fleeing combatants, came back into the city and killed who's left. Well, who's left? The women, the children, the disabled. So even if there's some hyperbole being involved here in terms of the complete destruction, maybe it's not a genocide, but it certainly still seems to be the kind of military practice which, if done today, would see condemnation and a lot more from the United Nations. In 1 Samuel, there's this. Again, I should read the text to be sure.
So ironically, he said it. If it was being done today, that the United Nations,
it would be condemned.
International courts will condemn it, which is what what's going on right now with the genocide in Gaza and all these other places. So he cannot deny. At one point, he's saying it's in hyperbole, but then he gives them a different verse where it's direct and it gives them a number, and then it says to go back and finish off.
And it gets worse.
Yeah. So how is it a hyperbole? Is it a hyperbole, or is it just direct, straight up? Kill them and then go back and finish off whatever is left.
I don't know how you can metaphorically kill somebody.
Yeah.
Like, you either kill them or you didn't.
Yeah.
But the idea, it wasn't like, and this is kind of disingenuous, because now you're playing like a numbers game.
Yeah.
And this is something kind of like Holocaust deniers do this, where they say like, well, it wasn't really 6 million. And you say, well, how much is it? It was actually 5 million,
Right.
5.74 million. That's what the more accurate number is. It's like, okay, well, there you go. Have 5 million. So is it okay to kill 5 million people? Is it okay to genocide 5.7? You see what I'm saying? It becomes childish. And they say, well, it wasn't really like a lot of people. It wasn't like 12,000. It was kind of like 11,874. It wasn't like really 12,000. So because we got below the threshold, then it's fine. And so the interviewer pins him down and actually emphasizes the verses that follow in the context, that it wasn't just go kill them. The ones that are running away, track them down, kill them. Then come back to the city and then kill the remaining people, the inhabitants. Blows my mind.
Yeah. So and Cliff tries to dodge it again, and we won't go to that. But watch this video. So
Cliff.
He says, when we play basketball and when we're playing the sports against our opponents, we say, oh, we're going to kill them. And then tries to say that is the same thing as actually tracking people down and killing them and then going back and finishing the job.
I mean, if that's what he means, I don't want to play basketball with Cliff. I do not want to play basketball with Cliff.
Yeah. Now I want to hear the reaction of the other gentleman.
With university students and older people, all they want to talk about is temptation and how easy it is to fall typically into like porn addiction and these kinds of things.
Mhm.
Well, very similar to what's going on there in terms of you have to kill off any and everything that's going to cause temptation because you are God's holy chosen people. Okay, whoa, wasn't that really ethnocentric?
Yeah. Okay. So tell me where in reality in the world where children are a temptation, animals are a temptation. If today's time, men and women, children though are a temptation.
That's wild.
He said, "Oh, today's time, we talk about temptation a lot. So if it's temptation, it's okay again to kill women, men, children, animals, X, Y, and Z."
This is a really strange exegesis that he's doing, because he's looking at like you were just told about the verses that were quoted about killing children, women, donkeys, all these things, and then the emphasis of going and tracking down those that run away and killing them, coming back to the city, killing the remaining inhabitants. And then now to go and say, well, guys, there's temptation. And what I get out of this verse is you got to kill it off, man. You got to kill off the temptation.
Yeah.
That's a wild,
Oh man.
there's a time
Yeah.
for everything. I understand, and we agree there are temptations of this world. But are we gonna go and pick verses off about fighting and killing,
Absolutely not.
the mushrikeen, for example, in the Quran, and say, well, what I get out of that is, the nafs is, you also have to shoot the arrow in the nafs and stab the nafs and slice it sometimes. It's bro, if you don't know, just say I don't know. Can we get to the next question? Say, look, that's your problem. If you don't know the answer to something, like what do you think about this verse? Just say, look, man, I don't know. I have to look into it. Let me get. But to go and now you're making a circus out of this.
They're contradicting themselves. One is saying it's a temptation, the other one's saying it's a metaphor,
It's a hyperbole,
exaggerated, and things of that
It's
nature.
exact-
But the two things that they have that they come to a commonality, a common ground, is that they both say they don't agree with it and that they don't understand
it bothers them.
Yeah.
and they don't.
They
Understand
don't like it. It's not on their side. They wish that wasn't in there because it's hard to defend something that is so straightforward like that.
Yeah.
And try to make it seem so innocent, and then try to push this whole God is very merciful and he's very loving, and then he wouldn't tell you to kill people and things.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. SubhanAllah.
Yeah, I think another issue too is for laymen it kind of makes sense, but you guys are professed, evangelists. You guys evangelize, and you're also apologists for the Christian faith.
Yeah.
For you now just to be like, well, and to do all these U-turns, it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, and if you listen, if you're a real man, a real Christian man, stand by these verses.
Yeah, stand on it.
That's all.
That's what
it's
it
not.
is.
It's not really hard.
Just
Just
say
stand
it.
by and say yes. This is what
If
it
you
says.
believe in the Bible and it's the inherent word of God, sola scriptura, if you believe in that, just that's it. Say, yeah, he killed those kids. Jesus did that, and I'm with him. But just to go be like, I'm not proud of those verses, and I don't understand them, and I don't like it, and it makes me feel bad. Do you believe in your own book or not?
Yeah.
Do you believe that, to be clear, do you believe that innocent children were killed by Israelites on the command of God? It's a historical fact.
I believe that innocent children were killed by Israeli bombs, and they happen to be Palestinians, part of Hamas maybe, or Hezbollah. I believe that there are consequences to human decisions that stretch down through the generations and then impact a lot of innocent people. And I think we're a little naive if we think that we can go into Iraq or fight a desert storm and no innocent people are going to be killed. It's one of the tragedies of war, which is a result of the sinful human heart.
But suppose, the Israeli government said, leave alive nothing that breathes. Kill the soldiers, but then once you've done that, turn around, go back, kill the women, kill the children, kill their animals. Because this land is yours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so again, he does exactly what he did in the beginning. He's trying to separate human decisions from God's command. God is telling you in the Bible to go and kill them. But then he keeps saying that these people, the innocent people that are dying, are the consequences of humans' actions. That we are at fault because we have free will, and that we are going and killing people. And that if you get caught in the fire, if you're collateral damage, that's just part of the game.
Yeah.
It's part of the process of war. And that there's no real structure. If I kill you and your family dies in the process, but I had, toe-to-toe battle with you, it's okay because that's part of war. Again, this is a scripture from the Bible that God has written or has, quote unquote, inspired others.
Yeah.
And that's a problem again.
Yeah. And then he's not answering the question. He's just not answering the question. Like, this is, again, we're not talking about collateral damage. You see how he always brings it back to collateral damage. And bombs come and they hit and people are around and they die. No, this is the Old Testament God, who you believe is Jesus, is mentioning by the title, by description, who should be killed, go and how to kill them and where to get them back. And if you don't do that, the job is not finished.
Right.
The job is not finished. This is not even people that you're, if you kill the men and the fighting men and all those things, and you tell the remaining to go and leave, that's actually more merciful than what the verse actually says, right? So he's not answering this, and this is what I want to. I believe he's not answering the question because he believes that those verses are unjust.
Absolutely.
They're immoral.
Absolutely.
I think that the fitra right now is reacting.
No, I mentioned that when you have a conversation with Christians, it's one or two, right? It's either they don't know and they don't know how to, respond to it, or they say, we don't believe in the Old Testament anymore. We follow the new one. And that's the same thing. He's trying to divert the question from answering in the way that addresses God and the scripture and going towards, again, human. He's saying, oh, well, this is what happens, X, Y, Z, because we're human and humans do this, and I don't agree with it.
We want this land. Seems to be, and when I read about somebody intentionally driving out or killing nations of people so that they can sort of essentially ethnically cleanse a land, I don't know what else to call that other than a genocide.
But it's still eventually, the point is to welcome them in. It's not like they're going to sit in the land flowing with milk and honey forever and again be God's chosen people, and that's it. So that's one. Secondly, we're reading this again from our 21st century Judeo-Christian lens. So your outrage and indignation over this is entirely Christian. That's why the Bible is self-critiquing, which I love about it. Thirdly, putting to the sword even women and children, as messed up as that sounds, many would say that that was actually more gracious in that time period than other civilizations who they're going to get raped the rest of their lives, right? And just horrific things that are unimaginable to us.
Okay, so I don't know if you heard that last part very clear. He said it is gracious, more gracious to be killed than to be raped or some other crazy stuff that goes on. So he's trying to basically justify that it's okay to kill women, children, innocent, cattle, sheep, whatever. As long that's better for them than all the other consequences that they used to deal with back in the day. Yeah. I don't know how you can justify killing children. Yeah. I don't know how you can justify that in any capacity where you say, you know what, we're sparing them their life because, they probably going to be tortured and hurt in certain ways or emotionally distressed and all that stuff. But it's okay to kill them because that is more, quote unquote, merciful than it is to keep them alive. I don't know how that resonates with you, but for me, that tells me that I cannot fathom how that's appropriate to be like, let's kill the kids because other bad things can happen to them. And then he says another thing, which is we're looking at it from a lens of today's time. The problem isn't the Bible supposed to be withstanding the time of,
it's supposed to stand the test of time.
Yeah, and that it should be universal and it should go from then and now. If you believe in Christianity, which is a part of that time, and then it's here today, Why is it hard for us to comprehend and understand and accept what was mentioned in the Bible that you're supposed to follow through and through?
Yeah.
And very problematic the way he's trying to justify the killing of, again, women, children. And I'm going to emphasize this so much because I don't know anywhere else or in our faith where you can say it's okay for you to kill innocent people left and right, and then try to say, no, you know, it means it's exaggerated or X, Y. Brothers and sisters, if you're listening and watching this clip, I'm telling you straight up, there is no way possible that you can justify the killing of innocent people. They're saying, again, another way to kill them is if they get caught in a crossfire, or if they are in the way of certain things, or, you know, even a metaphorical way where it's a killing where it means, you know, leave them off or put them to a side or something like that. If God is being direct in the Bible, then that's how we should approach it. There is no way. If you're providing context, please provide context. But I have not seen anywhere in this clip or in this video where they provided context that supports their claim to say metaphorical, hyperbole, or saying that it's okay to justify the killing of them. Nothing like that. It is all philosophical or opinionated, or to say at the very least, I don't agree with it. I would appreciate it if they just said, I don't agree with it, and maybe I don't know as much, and maybe we should not touch upon this, and let me go back and read upon it, and then come back to you. But a lot of their responses have been diverting the answer, but also trying to justify it by going in a different direction. And I think that doesn't give justice to the answer itself.
Yeah, I think, again, this just speaks to the liberal Christianity that's in the Western world. This is just liberalism. It's liberalism and atheism, really, because like this whole secularist idea of just, you know, church and state should be separated has been ingrained with the people for so long that they don't even believe in the morality that's actually preached in the Bible. They don't anymore. Mm-hmm. You can go to churches and you have like women who fornicate just sitting in the front row, no shame, right? The pastor probably does it. Mm-hmm. You know, they don't care anymore. Everything just became okay. And so for today's Christian to hear all this, they'll be like, what? That's wrong. This is not right. This is immoral. This doesn't matter. I believe in Jesus. That's why you can see a clear corruption in Christianity over time, is that the message and the nature of God actually changes. It's not even just like, you know, about text anymore. The nature of God actually changes throughout those centuries. First, they'll tell you, well, the Old Testament God was like this, but the New Testament is graceful and open, all this, and it's really a load of rubbish if you actually think about it. Yeah, at that time, was there Christianity as we know it today? No, there's no Christianity. Jesus didn't come yet. This is the Old Testament. But at the same time, you have to believe that Jesus was a part of that, right? So again, this is the manifestation of liberal Christianity, where they push everything under the rug that they don't like, and they try to explain away all these problematic Bible verses rather than saying, I don't believe in it. Just say you don't believe in it. Why do you have to go and say it's hyperbole, it's metaphor? Just say, look, I don't believe in the Old Testament. I believe in the New Testament, period. Then at that point, you can at least be consistent. Or stand on it and just say, look, hey, kids, yeah, they should have died. It was a judgment of God, and it is what it is. Stand on it. Yeah. Or give it all up together. Either it's the word of God or it's not.
Yeah, we made some great points. I think I'm just going to conclude with this. Yeah, obviously, there's so much. I think even just to be one more technical one more time, is to understand that even the point where he says that there is more gracious to kill them, there are other verses in the Bible that tells us how it's okay for certain things to happen that isn't about killing. For example, selling your children or your daughter to slavery, or you can kill your slave as long as he lives for an extra day or so. You won't be held accountable, X, Y, and Z. If you're having a hard time,
or I think one that should have been brought up, I don't remember if it was in this clip, was when Moses was ordered to go kill the Amalekites.
yeah,
And to kill them and slaughter them the same exact way.
right,
I believe that was in the book of Numbers. And at the end, the Israelites were told, but keep the women, keep the young girls who've never known a man, keep them for yourselves. Right. So I'm Cliff.
Listen. If you're having a hard time
Wow.
grasping this, swallowing this hard pill, if it's very difficult for you, imagine the verses we're talking about. If these brothers cannot defend their religion through and through in this matter off of just this verse, imagine the other ones that we're bringing up. I think the host did him a favor because this wasn't a debate or a confrontation. He just genuinely asking him about a verse that he finds very peculiar and that it breathes genocide through and through. And how do you combat that? How do you explain to other Christian families and folks who've been following the religion, who believe God is very loving and they want to help people, but then hear verses like this and have no way to explain it, and then go home and have to like question their faith? So sometimes you got to understand that that's the problem. Read these verses, understand the context. I'm not denying that. Go ahead and find out the background on it, but don't sit there and try to give your opinion on it, try to justify it, because that does a dishonest to your own faith. Because as Muslims, we're taught that if you don't know something very simple, just say, I don't know. The better thing to say is, I don't know, and I'll go find out. But at the very least, just say you don't understand, you don't know. Because that saves you from the trouble of trying to, give an opinion that's wrong, false, fall into a trap where they can pull you into something you don't understand, or even, make you question your own deen. The important thing is to follow the deen through and through, study as best as you can, listen, learn, and all these things. And if you cannot, again, just say, I don't know. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and the Quran mentions that, that there are some Christians, the people of the book, some of them that are sincere, and some of them that are able to listen and hear the truth when it's spoken. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also concludes that the majority of them are perverted transgressors.
Absolutely.
And this is important for us to understand when dealing with today's Christian. It's not like the Christian of the past, And so there's been a lot of whitewashing and a lot of watering down of the Christian religion today, that the only thing that's left is Jesus loves you. And was that enough for the early Christians? It's probably a whole different subject. But brothers and sisters, man, until next time, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot. And comment and share and like, subscribe to this channel. Any other questions you have, Christians, we always welcome you to ask questions and dialogue with us. And that's all we have for today. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.